I think I was scammed in my Learjet purchase. I'm about to find out for sure. It all started right after the auction. I got a phone call from somebody I didn't know, and I have no idea how they got my phone number, which is a great reason Incogni is sponsoring today's video. He may have gotten my information from one of these data brokers that sell all of our personal data out into the world to the highest bidder, and there's a whole bunch of websites where you can just pay a monthly fee and get somebody's phone number and address, kind of like the old school white pages. And there's no way to prevent people from using these services. However, Incogni reaches out to these data brokers and requests they remove your information. It's super easy to get started. Just create an account, give them the right to work for you, and watch them go to work. Incogni is available risk-free for the first 30 days, and if you don't like it, get a full refund. Use code Jimmy's World to get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan. That's code Jimmy's World. After that phone call, I definitely signed up. Now let me tell you the rest of the story. For disclosure reasons, I'm not going to share with you who called me. Maybe in the future, we might breach that subject. We might even meet this person. But for now, I got a really weird phone call. And then I also started getting some text messages and some emails from other people that knew about this airplane and its past. I even got an email from a guy that works with Jason over at Rebuild Rescue. His dad and he used to manage this airplane, I think back in the 90s up to the early mid 2000s or something like that. He reached out and said, yeah, they used to fly this airplane, they knew it and all that. At that time, it had nothing to do with Buzz Aldrin or NASA that they knew of. And none of those stickers were on there when they had the airplane. Then I did some digging on Google and I discovered a picture from Sun and Fun that I found that had this airplane with those stickers and graphics on it. So sometime between the mid-2000s and this picture being taken, that stuff was added. There was also a different owner. Apparently this is some guy that lived in Canada and flew it from Canada to Florida, I think. As I'm told, is that Buzz Aldrin used this airplane to promote the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission. So that would have been 2019, which kind of fits the timeline of all of this stuff. And they flew it to Sun and Fun, I think the year or two before that, and then again in 2019. And I've heard that Buzz Aldrin may have even flown on this airplane during that promotion. And I know he's still around, and he actually lives right down the road from where the airplane is parked, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to have an interview with him to get his input on this as well. Oh, by the way, if you know Buzz or share this video with him, if you do know him, I'd love to do an interview and talk to him about this airplane and maybe some of the other cool stuff that this guy has done, because he's kind of a legend. Second dude to walk on the moon. That's pretty cool. Anyways, back to this Learjet. Well, these are the FAA official records, and on this CD is going to be all of the registration and purchase information from the time it was new until, well, my stuff hasn't got on here yet, but all the way up until I bought it. The hard thing is it's a CD, and none of my computers actually have a CD drive, so I'm going to have to go over to my PC computer, my flight sim computer, fire that thing up and pop this in and see what's on here. Well, while we wait for the PC to fire up, I learned, and we started using the remote control airplane stuff on the simulator through, and you can connect that to it. It was super neat. I never knew you could do that. But we've been doing that to practice our RC airplane stuff so that when we get out there to the real thing, it doesn't crash the real thing like we've done in the past. Okay, well, maybe like 10 or 20 minutes and this thing will be fired up, ready to go. Oh, we got another CD. Here we go. November 119 Bravo Alpha, which I actually thought stood for Buzz Aldrin. I hope so. We're about to find out. It says here the standard airworthiness certificate in 1965, when it was new, had November 788 Delta Romeo on it. Here is the first bill of sale I can find. The American Learjet Company is who was the builder of it. Oh no, they purchased it. Oh, that's interesting. Because they were the first ones to put an IN number on it. And it says they paid all of $1 for it, plus other value considered, which, yeah, make of that what you will. However, the mortgage on it was $500,000 back in 1966. That's a pretty good chunk of cash. Okay, so how long did they own it, and who'd they sell it to? So then the American Learjet Company was the seller. The buyer was this Duncan Corporation in February of 66, so pretty much right around the same time. They kept the same IN number at that point, and they also only paid $1 for it. Okay, so then this Duncan Corporation here sold it to this Hennington Durham Richardson Inc. out of Omaha, and they did that in March 15th of 66. Good Lord. And did they sell it for $739,000? Wow. Okay. So that happened. And then that Hennington Durham Richardson people, I think they refinanced it in January of 72, because this is a note from a bank, United States National Bank. Assignee. I think that's what they did, was put debt on it with this. And then at that time, that Richardson Durham people sold it to Duplicating Services, also out of Omaha, in January. And it still had the same IN number on it. Also for $1. And then on the exact same day, still the same day, that Duplicating, because they just duplicated this airplane apparently, they sold it to this Management Jets International company for $1. You guessed it. Okay, this is getting weird again. This is getting ridiculous. So just a couple of weeks later, that company sold it to this Skystream people out of Plymouth, Indiana. You want to guess how much? $1. Yet somehow they got a $400,000 loan on it. I'm just saying, that's a $1 well invested. Holy moly. From the Clinton National Bank. What? Okay, this is getting fishy already. Then, just like 2 months later, 3 months later, it sold again. So it went from that Skystream to this John Ritzenthaler guy here in Florida. Look at that. And you want to know how much he paid? $1. Okay, we got our first major change. The IN number changed during his ownership, and he sold it a few years later in 76, so about 4 years later, to a Roy Beck out of Elkhart, Indiana, which that's where they make all the motorhomes. So I wonder if that guy was a motorhome guy. And he sold it there. You want to guess how much? Yep, $1. And that dude got a loan of $500,000 on that jet. Seems like that jet is sold over and over for the same amount of money. Wow. And guess what happened 2 years later? You guessed it, it sold again. Sold from that dude there to this Beck Air Company, which actually I'm going to say that's him again, but he had to sell it again, and he still has the same tail number. So it's 101JR, which was the initials of the previous owner. And he transferred it, yep, for $1. And right here is a letter to the FAA asking to change the tail number to one of these right here. So let's see if we can find which one they gave him. We have discovered where the tail number came from, 119BA or Beck Air, and that happened in 1980. So it's not Buzz Aldrin, it's Beck Air. Okay, interesting. Well, that guy owned this thing for a while, because in, I think that says 85, he sold it to Aerosmith Penny. That's cool. I wonder if that's the band Aerosmith. 85? Could have been. They would have been popular then. And you want to know how much? Yep. Oh, it went up $10 and OVC. And we know that that tail number is the same even through what it has today. So, okay, Aerosmith owned that thing apparently. And then Aerosmith sold it to Aero something Center maybe shortly after for, you guessed it, $10 OVC. Man, this airplane is insane. It switched again. I don't know. I'm going to guess 86 maybe. It doesn't have the date right there. But it went from Aero Center to this George Priester Aviation guy in Wheeling, Illinois. And no price listed. But I'm going to guess, I've got a wild guess what that price is. You want to know what happened 3 years later? Yep, sold again. Brandis Aircraft Company in Tylerville, Illinois. Also, no idea how much, but I've got a pretty good guess. Okay, this is ridiculous. What? Air Rent in Minneapolis bought it. So he must have been a broker and put it in his name and then sold it because this is the same year. And yep, you guessed it, $1. Also on that same day, must have been later in the afternoon, that Air Rent people sold it to this Richard Wood guy in Las Vegas, I'm assuming for $1, on the 5th of May, Cinco de Mayo. So far, none of these buyers have been in Titusville, where Mr. Buzz lives, and none of them have had anything to do with military contracts that I know of, but we know that the military and those people use other companies as fronts and shells, so we can't figure out what they're doing. We still have a few more to go through. Let's dig through these, and I'm hoping something with Buzz Aldrin or NASA or something shows up in this document. If you're curious how much interest rate was in 1989, 14.5% variable on an airplane. And amount financed, amount he put down, so it looks like his payments, with interest and all that, he would be paying back $341. So I think this was the first guy to pay less than $500,000 for that airplane. And those payments were $4,000 a month in 1989. Wow. You'll never guess what happened. Yeah, sold again from that place. It went to another dealer and then sold to this Lear 25, also out of Las Vegas, 3 years later for apparently nothing. So this must have been another change of ownership there. Man, this is crazy. Surprise! Lear sold it to Barclay Auto Sales in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Yeah, you guessed it, for $1. They sold it to him in 94. Now, I think this was the guy who called me and talked to me because they were in the Pennsylvania area, and I don't know if that was the sales, the auto sales or whatever, but this would be about the right time. And then it looks like it changed names, I'm guessing, from this Barclay to Sanderson Aircraft, because it's pretty much the same area. And I believe that's the place where the airport is right there in Coatesville. For $1, and they did that shortly after getting it. So I think this was a name change into a business here. Aha! Here's the Canada dude. So then they sold it to this Canada guy, and that was in 2006. I'll be doggone. So all this is checking out. And then this Canada guy, from what I'm told, I've not been able to talk to him, but then he flew it down to Florida back and forth a whole bunch. And I think he was the guy later that put the NASA and the Buzz Aldrin stuff on there. So I'm hoping there's some more documents in here. Let's keep going. Okay, this is really interesting. So those people in Canada sold it to this one, HS Contract Manufacturing, Great Falls, Montana, in 2010. Still has, of course, the same tail number for $1 standard here. I think we're getting closer. I don't know if those are the same people or different people, if this was his US company that owned the airplane, or if this was somebody else. Let's keep digging. We're getting close. Yeah, that's what I thought. This is the same guy. Same, this McCulloch guy. It's the same signature and name as the other one, so he must have been the same person on this one. Okay, we got them selling it to Making Memories LLC in Wilmington, Delaware. Because, yeah, we all know the companies in Delaware. And that was in 2015. Interesting. Okay, hey, they actually paid money for it. $50,000. This is the first time anybody's ever paid money. Huh. Okay. Okay, so that Making Memories guy, he had it until December of 2018 when they sold it to the Royal Air Museum, which that is the owner that was all involved in that lawsuit and everything. And that's who I bought it from. So I bought it from the Royal Air Museum through the U.S. Marshal seized asset auction. So that connects every dot along the way. And they purchased it in 18. So maybe it was them. Oh, donated right there. Look at that. $OVC donated. Interesting. So this guy must have donated it to them. And I'm assuming for $50,000, like what was on his last bill of sale, maybe? And it was darn near the last day of the year, so he needed a tax deduction. That's what that was about. Well, that is quite the conundrum. Nothing that I dug up on there said anything about the government or NASA or Buzz Aldrin, nothing. The only thing I have is word of mouth and one picture that I was able to find of that airplane in 2000 something, 18, 19, in Lakeland, Florida at Sun and Fun with that NASA stuff on it. I guess the only place we got to go now is we got to get a hold of Buzz Aldrin. While I'm figuring this out, you go sign up to win $500 on SaveThe310.com. You don't have to buy a t-shirt like the It'll Be Fine shirt that I'm wearing in the way that I'm feeling after all of this Jet, Buzz Aldrin, NASA stuff. All you got to do is go on to SaveThe310.com, put your email address to sign up for our newsletters, and at the end of this month, only next week, we are going to be drawing our $500 winner from everybody who has signed up. So head over there now before it's too late. SaveThe310.com, and I will see you later.